Why do we resist accountability even when we know we need it?
Well, it sucks being held accountable. It sucks being confronted with the change you got to make. And
this one's tough. This one is maybe one of the biggest hurdles for any human to have to face, to break out of the limiting beliefs that they have to really explore the excitement of life.
So I'm going to ask this, but I'll give you an example. What was the hardest truth you had to receive that shifted the trajectory of your life? So, example, I volunteered for the church for 7 years. I was the most tenured volunteer in the youth group. When I was 18, a position opened up to be the intern. And I thought I just had it in the bag because I was like, I've been here the longest. That's it.
Yeah.
But
it's just expected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I heard the job was offered to somebody else, I went to lunch with my pastor and I started to kind of grill him. And I was just like, dude, what the heck? Like, I've been here the longest. This person's been here 2 years. I've been here 7. You know what I mean? And he just straight up asked me, where's this entitlement coming from? Why are you so entitled to that position? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, sure, you've been here longer, but you also show up late. You show up when you want to. I can't rely on you. Why would I hire you? Just straight up like that. I broke down crying immediately because that sucked to hear, man, like that.
Yeah.
But that took me back so many instances in school of thinking I should have made the drumline because I was first chair, and then second chair got it. Why? Because I skipped concerts, I skipped practices, I skipped, you know. So I had developed this entitlement mindset of if I just spend the most time there, who cares if I'm reliable? It's about time. Like, I spent the most time here, I should get the position. You know what I mean? So like that truth really sucked. But it taught me humility really quick.
Yeah. It taught you to self-reflect, I'm sure.
Yes.
That's the one for me, was the fact that I was excited about exploring things in life, but I was so fearful about looking in. It allowed me to believe so many things about myself that weren't even close to who God says I was. And so having to admit the fact that I was operating as an individual in a way that was completely missing the mark was hard to swallow. It's the same thing we talked about in section 1. Admitting and seeing those giants spiritually in my heart, in my mind, and actually saying, hey, I'm here to remove you and no longer allow you to be part of my belief system, my foundation of what I believe, was super hard.
Yeah.
Because being kind to others, being giving and sharing and doing all those things and not applying that to my own life allowed me to have an identity that was completely false.
Right.
Putting myself down and believing negative things about myself from what was said to myself as a child, different circumstances that I'd walked through that I'd messed up, and thinking, man, that is just who I am. Just a broken, messed up, gonna make this a mess person. I believed it. Saying negative things to myself, even though I knew that God wouldn't want me to speak those over other people, was one of the hardest things that I had to realize, to hold myself accountable to God's word.
It's perfectly normal to want to be Superman. Everybody wants to be the hero. But even in the story of Superman, what did he lose? His planet. And like, I think that's why that story was written that way. It was like he had all the power in the world, but it wasn't enough to save his own planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everybody wants to be the hero in their story, but as soon as it starts feeling like you're not the hero, you don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Or you'll do things to mask that insecurity. You'll do things to cope with falling short of whatever that trajectory was.
Yep. I mean, that leads into, you think about substance abuse, phones, doom scrolling, watching shows, movies, the things we do to avoid facing the hard realities that are holding us back. I mean, it's so easy nowadays. Alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco, weed, drugs, they've been around forever. But technology, the internet, shows, movies, social media accounts, the ability to be able to check out from your own pain is so easy. But to actually dive in and say, hey, what is this thing that you believe that's actually untrue, that's holding you back from becoming the version of yourself that you look at and you're like, wow, you are special. Yeah. You are loved. You are powerful. You are talented and gifted. You have something to offer. And when we can get to a place where our definition of ourselves is something that inspires us, you talk about purpose being born, because suddenly it no longer matters about whether you're surrounded by people that encourage you or inspire you or make you feel better about yourself. When your own version of your identity in your mind matches who God says you're created to be and you believe it, suddenly you are the source of inspiration. You are the one that you say, when I come into a room or my family or my workplace, I'm the one that brings the peace, the excitement, the sense of adventure. I'm the calm when everybody else is frantic and doesn't know what to do. Because regardless of my circumstances, whether I have a lot of money, a little money, whether the world's on fire or everything is going good in the economy and everything with the countries, there's no wars, it doesn't matter, because I'm grounded in the basic understanding of who I am. And from that place, I can operate from a source of peace and understanding because it matches who God says I am.
And just because it was hard to obtain doesn't mean it's worth keeping around. I see that a lot in people of, well, I put in all this time at school, I put in all this time at this job. Doesn't mean it's worth it.
You think, dude, the longer you get exposed to something, the deeper you dig in, it is hard to sacrifice that. I mean, we talked about Paul in church this weekend. We're actually going through a series, and Saul, who he was as a Pharisee, he went from murdering Christians to believing something so much that he was killing people because they opposed his view. And when he it was a pretty violent bumping into. Jesus blinded him on the road to Damascus, had his name changed, such a transformation that he had a new name, but he had to surrender everything that he had built his life on. He was so convicted of what he believed that he was killing people over it. And to say, man, I'll give all that up because I now realize there's a different version of the truth that actually matters, that's actually real. And I have to admit that. He had to hold himself accountable and say, I was wrong. And he jumped wholesale into the actual truth and surrendered everything he had built up for himself in this life leading up to that point.
Suddenly I feel less bad about myself.
Talking about Paul, yeah. Well, that's what our pastor talked about this, and it's like, people will say, and I've said this, I don't think God can forgive this certain thing, or maybe it's a handful of things, or maybe just in general, you feel like such a bad person, I don't think God could save me. Like we discredit ourselves so easily when we have a negative view of ourselves. And he said, if God can save Paul, who was literally murdering Christians for believing in the Messiah, I think you can find forgiveness through what Jesus did on the cross for you.
God transcends the ego. Because we talked about that too, how your ego is commonly portrayed as a thing that says, like, I'm going to belittle everybody, or I'm better than everybody else. But it's also the other side of that too, where it's, I don't deserve this.
Yep.
It can go both ways.
Yeah, because I thought I was being humbled by putting myself down.
Right.
Acknowledging my flaws and that I was just this broken person who consistently messes things up. And it was ultimately saying my idea of myself was more accurate than God's definition of who I was.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what I was saying. And I had to come to grips with that, of saying, and it helped me let go. It helped me surrender that, of saying, well, I didn't realize I was doing that, but I definitely don't want to say that my version of my life in my own mind is more important than what God says I am, or that it's more accurate.
Right.
So it made it easy to surrender when I began to compare. I'm saying this about me and God's saying this. Well, who am I going to choose?
Yes.
And suddenly it made the choice really easy. Now, it was still hard to navigate that, learn new habits, learn to walk in those things that I was gifted through what Jesus did on the cross. We get his righteousness, his faith, and it was a gift. He paid for it, and he paid dearly for it. And by not accepting that, I was discrediting all the pain and suffering he went through on the cross. And when you put it that way, it's like, okay, I need to give this up real quick. Because Jesus, I'm thankful for what you did on the cross, but since I wasn't accepting it, I was discrediting that, and I don't want to do that.
I always, when I thought of God that way, I looked at, I had the angry parent complex for God.
Yeah.
You know, like it felt like everything was a shouting point, you know, kind of thing. So for you, what did you do? What was the realization you had that was different about how God actually holds you accountable?
Yeah, it went from a place of pride of saying, I don't want to be told what to do. That's part of our complex as humans. Like, we want to be our own God, and say that he's not being a mean parent. He's actually given wisdom about what's beneficial for me in my life. So yes, I can say no because I want to do something else. I want to control my own life. But realizing it was for my benefit instead of what it was taking away from me. It's all about perspective. I thought I was losing something that I really wanted, only to realize, like King Solomon says in Ecclesiastes, this stupid thing that I was chasing so hard, in the end, is going to be worthless. It's chasing after the wind. It's pointless. And so realizing that I'm giving up nothing to gain everything.
Right.
When I shifted that perspective, I felt silly in the first place of even fighting giving that up.
Yeah.
But I was placing value on something that never had the value I believed it to have in the first place.
That's good.
So it's hard to admit that, especially if you, like you said, have fought so hard for it and even told people that this is so valuable and is so important and that they should even do that in their life. I mean, the one example I think of that even drives me crazy is when people are so hard on either the upcoming generation or whatever it is about, you need to go to college, you need to get a degree, you've got to have your 401k dialed in, you've got to be looking for every opportunity to advance in your career and all that stuff. And then that's the basis of their guidance for you. Like, you must do this because it's so important. Now, if some of those things apply to you because it's beneficial to your family and you have a bigger purpose outside of just it's expected of you, that's fine. If you have a genuine agenda to impact the kingdom of heaven through what you're doing, and there's some very big reasons that line up with God's truth why you're doing that, that is great. Those can fall into line. But the fact that that's the only expectation and you should just do it because it's the most prudent way, that's where it becomes frustrating, because people are trying to push something onto you, a system onto you that may not fit where God's calling you to go.
Right.
I mean, you think about people called to missions, move to a different country. They give up so many different things. People that want to start a business and to take all the risk and refinance stuff and borrow money just to get something going that might not work. So few people understand that because it doesn't fit into the expected, hey, if you just do this, you'll be safe. Mm-hmm. Well, safe from what? We're all going to die. Like, we are coming to the end of our time. We get to live this life once. I want to know what I can truly pursue that brings fulfillment and feeds into my purpose of what God created me to be. That way, when I get to the end of the life, and then that way, when I get to the end of my life, I say something like, wow, that was a wild ride. I don't get to the end of my life, just like our quote says, and die disappointed.
Yeah.
It actually brings up something that I wanted to share that has been a huge eye-opening experience for me, and it's actually Bronnie Ware. I'd like to read just the top regrets she found of humans. She was a palliative care nurse, I believe, and as she was taking care of people in their last days of life, she was consistently asking people their biggest regrets. And here's the top 5 of what she found. Number 1, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me.
Expectations, yeah.
Once again, bought into the system.
Yep.
Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard.
Interesting.
Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings.
Felt that, yeah.
Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends.
Yep.
And number 5, I wish that I'd let myself be happier.
It's a choice.
It is a choice because once again, I'm following a guy right now. I don't know if you've seen this guy on social media. He worked at Discount Tire. He realized that he did not want to, he came to a realization. He didn't want to be a part of the corporate scene for the rest of his life. He cashed in his 401k. Oh, that was the other piece. He also got a diagnosis, something to do with his spine, that could make it very easy for him to, I want to say, become paralyzed, even potentially be life-ending if he was to, get bumped or hit too hard. And it was a realization of his mortality.
Right.
So coming to the understanding that life is already so short, even if you live to be 100, but him realizing that it could be even coming to a close sooner, realizing he was unhappy in the corporate scene, he cashed in his 401k, sold everything, bought a sailboat, and he is currently on day 10 or 11. I've been following his story.
Oh, I saw this guy.
Yeah, he sold everything, and his dream was to sell
From Oregon
to Hawaii.
Yeah.
But he wants to sail the world. That's what he wants to spend his time doing. Him and his cat are sailing right now out in the middle of the ocean. And you can see, like if you go watch his older videos where he started videoing from when he worked at Discount Tire, he just posted a video of when he was selling everything, still in his Discount Tire suit and all this stuff. He was making the jump to where he is now. You can even see the countenance on his face is different. The joy and the peace of saying, I believed in me enough and wanted to take a chance on my dreams, the vision of how I wanted my life to go, so that when I get to the end of it, I can say, I took the jump and did something that I knew if I didn't do, I would regret. If he was at the last days of his life in palliative care, he would say, I wish I'd have gone after my dream of sailing around the world.
And even with all your points that you brought up from the book, it's also important to remember it's okay to be wrong. Would you rather go the rest of your life living in this mistake and this wrong way of thinking, knowing that you're doing wrong, knowing that this isn't really what you want to do? It's mind-blowing to me that the majority of people that get degrees don't end up using them.
You got to be very intentional with it. It's a lot of money.
To just throw it. Like, if I'm going to spend that much money, I'd rather at least do something. And that was my excuse for dropping out of college was, well, I don't want to keep spending money in pursuit of just trying to find whatever it is I want to do. Yes. I'm not going to just keep shoveling money away. If I am going to be shoveling money away, I'd rather do it on experiences or... Like right now, I'm not putting money into the stock market because right now it is more important for me to invest in the business I currently have right now.
Yeah, and learning the skills necessary to keep making you money.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that came from what started off as false humility, which was the I don't deserve this, what I thought was being humble. Ultimately finding humility through it. And now, like, if we're both pretty equal-minded. Like we both obviously like see things the same, but we have had moments like we've had disagreements and we've been able to have healthy conversations about it.
Yeah.
That's what's so important, is that you can engage in those conversations that challenge your ideas, because ultimately that's either going to reveal that you were in the wrong mindset, or you had the wrong perspective or wrong information, or it gives you an opportunity to share that truth with somebody else.
100%. Yeah.
But again, it's just, if you're in a position where you feel like you made a mistake, or you just have to ride it out because you're just stuck in a position, whatever it is, it's okay to be wrong. Fix it today. Like, you don't have to ride it out. Nobody cares about you that much. Like, nobody is gonna, the people that are gonna look at you and say, oh, remember that stupid thing you did way back, man, those aren't life-speaking people. That's not who you need in your circle anyway. You know what I mean?
Yep, definitely. And if you realized how quickly the living forget the dead, you would stop living to impress them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's one of the battles we have to face as humans.
Yep.
The fruit that was produced in my life, facing the things that I had wrong, has made me hungry, so hungry, to now check and test everything I do. Because being okay and being comfortable admitting I'm wrong now makes me want to find out any other limiting belief or false belief I have in my life, because I know as soon as I confront that and invest in something that's actually true and better, the version of myself I'm going to be after making that change and surrendering that false belief gets me excited.
Yeah.
If we begin to realize what it will produce in us, being comfortable admitting we're wrong, we will create that as one of our best habits of holding ourselves accountable and saying, you know what, I'm putting this under the microscope, because if it's false, I'm kicking it to the curb quickly. Because as soon as I cut that out and prune that off, I know that when I pick up what is actually true, it's going to grow me and fulfill me so much more, give me a different perspective on life that gives me peace throughout the day, helps me feel comfortable in my own skin. I'm actually rushing into those opportunities now instead of hiding from them, because I've experienced the benefit of surrendering those false identities in my life.
Right.
So now it becomes a skill set instead of like this thing we just dread. Man, I don't want to face things in my life. I don't want to question that, because if I question it, it's wrong. Oh, what's that mean? What's other people going to think? As soon as you navigate and get rid of all that crap, you'll say, yep, this one's the next one I'm testing, because as soon as I test that and get rid of it, great. I'm going to grow and become better as a person and see life in a much richer state than I have before. Right. I'm going to be ready to let those things go. So like even with college, we talked about, if college is something like if there's a degree that's offered for you that you're saying, man, I want to do this for the rest of my life. This sets me on fire. You know, maybe it's working with kids and you liked going to the dentist as a kid, whatever it may be. And man, I can only imagine how fun it would be to just work with kids every day, work on their teeth. I'm very intrigued of the science behind it and the skills necessary. That investment is worthwhile. It doesn't matter what college costs at that point. If that's a dream of yours, it's worth the investment. Just like if you want to start a business, the sacrifices and the money it's going to take to build, buy land, pay the architects, build a building, and then operate a successful business, that investment in risk is worth it.
Yep.
But as long as it sets you on fire and it's you can just feel it in your bones, everything is on the table. But make sure you're doing it from a place of purpose. It fits your identity of who God created you to be, and you know why you're doing it.
Right.
If you don't know why, you were just told that this is just the right way to do it, and you haven't asked why, it may not be a fit for you, even though they think it's such a prudent way to go.
Yeah.
You have to question those things.
And just another thing to add too, to be self-accountable doesn't mean you have to be mean to yourself. The thing that helped me fix that was somebody said, if you're seeing if you're holding yourself accountable for all the mistakes you made, but you're also not rewarding yourself for your successes, you're just being mean to yourself. You're not holding yourself accountable.
That's good.
So for me, like when I do something good, I make a good edit, I have a good shoot, I had a good meeting, I will actually just physically pat myself on the back. Because for me, it's that same feeling of like dad patting you on the back or whatever, but it gives me that reward, that internal validation that I need to just celebrate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get stuck in going, growth. But as soon as you hit a milestone, you're like, all right, next one. You got to take a moment to reward those successes. And it's a lot easier to do if you have somebody along on the journey with you. So like whenever we've been meeting and I would change a habit and you would notice it, or I would have a perspective shift and we talk about it, you were always really good about celebrating that and making me feel so. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
But again, like it made it that much easier having somebody there to acknowledge it for me, because sometimes we just get blind to it ourselves too. But you have to celebrate yourself.
100%. Yeah, the celebrations for yourself is the start, and then it also helps you be willing to selflessly celebrate others. Too many times when we're comparing ourselves to others, we don't like celebrating other success because it makes us feel inferior. But when you're good at celebrating yourself and you're doing the inner work and you're acknowledging, getting rid of the things that are limiting beliefs, and you're actually recognizing your own identity for what it is and for who God says it is, and you're celebrating yourself, you realize, man, they're doing the same thing and they're having some of their own light bulb moments where they're coming into the understanding and truth that's going to shift their perspective and open their mind to so many bigger things in life that are rich and fulfilling. And it helps you celebrate other people because it doesn't make you feel inferior. It makes you feel connected. It helps you relate instead of feeling like you're falling behind. So that's huge for sure. And so, man, I've enjoyed, you've done the same for me, been so positive and encouraging. And you're right, doing this journey with somebody that's also trying to face so many scary things and take a risk and gamble on ourselves and holding ourselves accountable, it is encouraging. It helps create a safe space, and it's rewarding to not only celebrate your own stuff, but celebrate the others, and we can have a celebration together. So self-accountability is one of the best forms of love you can give yourself, because when you don't look at it as a threat, you realize that when you hold yourself accountable and you remove those things that are actually holding you back and convincing you you're somebody that you're not, it's actually a form of love that helps you grow into enjoying who God created you to be. So that is section 2 for our shorter videos. Thank you for joining along. Just a reminder, Saturdays, our full content, full video is released. If you like the shorter content, little points at a time, we hope you enjoyed section 2, and we hope that it applies to your life and helps you jump into the journey of self-accountability and helps you break the loops and cycles that have been holding you back so that you can create new ones that help you find your purpose in life.
Next video comes out Friday.
Friday!